Hello everyone, I'm back with another Fortnite gameplay video. Smash that subscribe button and wait, are we not doing, okay, now that you guys are engaged, hello everyone, welcome to the Post-Noon Podcast. I'm your host, Parge. Today we're going to talk about the new book by Joseph Heller, Catch-22. It's a very interesting book with a lot of themes and symbolism as well as historical commentary. It's set during World War II. The point of view is mainly that of American fighter pilots in Italy during the war. The main protagonist is an American pilot called John Yossarian. Yossarian is actually a very unusual protagonist. He has many flaws, is not clearly a good guy or a bad guy, and it's all up to the reader to decide. From his perspective, his only goal is to leave the army. He devises a plan to leave from the insanity plea, but this is where the Catch-22 term comes from. To leave the army, you must be insane, but the desire to leave the army makes you sane. There are many instances of Catch-22 throughout the book, and it is a term coined by Heller as a paradoxical situation. So like a Catch-22 would be like an example where you want to open a bank account, right? But you can't get a bank account without a permanent address, but you can't start renting without a bank account. So that's our government for you. Aside from Yossarian, however, almost all the other characters are extremely flat and one-dimensional. Here's an example that shows Yossarian's character in a nutshell. This scene is called I See Everything Twice. Through this scene, we can determine that Yossarian is extremely and immensely selfish and self-serving. He wastes the hospital's time, money, and service while pretending to be estranged and sick, just so that he can escape duty. The action also endangers the lives of his fellow pilots, as now there are less pilots to defend each other. It also exemplifies the theme of serving your country versus serving yourself. Yossarian, just like many of the other pilots, choose to serve themselves and not serve the military. Yossarian does not care who wins the war, and only wants to save his own skin. And now, here's I See Everything Twice. Yossarian has just been admitted into the hospital. He claimed to be sick, but in fact, he's just doing it to get out of duty.
I see everything twice.
I see everything twice. Oh no! How many fingers am I holding up?
2!
How many fingers am I holding up?
2!
How many fingers am I holding
2!
up?
The walls, push back the walls.
The walls, push back the walls. Is that good?
It's better.
One day later, the unknown patient is found dead.
Oh no, he's dead.
I see everything once.
How many fingers am I holding up?
1!
How many fingers am I holding up?
1!
How many fingers am I holding up?
1!
Yay, we cured it!
Yay!
High five!
Another prevalent theme is the terrors of war. Prior to World War I, most people assumed that war was glorious and they were proud to join the army. The book starkly contrasts the view. It speaks of the horrors of the war and also shows how unpatriotic the soldiers were. It also shows many of the corruptions and inefficiency of military bureaucracy. Many of the soldiers care only about their own lives and they're happy to sacrifice others if it meant saving themselves. Many do not care about America and often desert and try to get out of the war. In addition, the author very vividly and gruesomely describes the violence and bloody details of some casualties. For example, here's a quote that exemplifies Heller's violence. There was just Kid Samson's 2 pale skinny legs, still joined by strings, somehow at the bloody truncated hips, standing stock still on the raft for what seemed a full minute or two before they toppled over backwards into the water, and finally with a faint echoing splash and turned completely upside down so that only the grotesque toes and the plaster white soles of Kid Samson's feet remained in view. As you can see, Heller includes many gruesome details to explain the atrocities of the war. Now, we're going to take some questions about Catch-22. Alright, we have our first caller, and I'm bringing him in live now. So, you're now live.
Hello?
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, hi, Parge. I just want to say I'm a huge fan of the show. So, I have a couple questions about Catch-22. I was wondering if Heller used any literary criticism in the book.
Yeah, there's actually many types of literary criticism that can be used to evaluate the book. The foremost lens would definitely be a feminist lens, because there are many women in the book, but their significance and perspective is only in relation to the men around them. They're only used as objects and not given any characterization or depth. Another lens could be historical criticism. Heller exaggerates the extent of red tape in the military leadership and is very critical towards many of the colonels. It is absurd how brutal the colonels are towards their subordinates and how little they care about their lives. In my opinion, Heller's just protesting against the war and arguing how pointless it is, but in my opinion, I also think that Heller is really trying to target at how inefficient and pointless the military, especially the bureaucracy of the military, can be. Alright, here's a scene that demonstrates the absurdity and cruelty of military officers towards their subordinates and to what extent they go to rise the ranks of the corrupted military bureaucracy. Right now, the colonel is trying to prosecute the chaplain because he's angry towards him, because he thinks that the power of God is not on his side, and that the chaplain is secretly working against him, even though the chaplain has committed no crimes whatsoever. He tries to pin ludicrous and illogical offenses on the chaplain. Heller also uses this scene for comic relief. Make yourself comfortable, chaplain. You know, there are many ways to make a man admit the truth. And I know you're guilty of something, and I'm about to find out what. Write your name. This isn't your handwriting.
I just wrote it.
This isn't your handwriting.
You saw me write it.
Yeah, but look at this. This is not your handwriting.
What, I just wrote it. What do you want from me?
Is this your handwriting?
Yes?
Exactly. This is your handwriting, not this.
I just wrote it.
You're clearly lying, which makes you guilty. Now, did you steal the plum tomato? I know you did.
You gave it to me.
No. You stole it from me.
Stole it from you. Handed the plum tomato to me.
No, you stole it.
Ah!
You are guilty, and I will make you pay for stealing. This is not suitable for a man who chose this. I will make you pay for stealing a superior officer's plum tomato. Officer, make sure that he lives.
Thanks for that answer, Parch. I was wondering if there are any important symbols in Catch-22.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of symbols in Catch-22. For example, the character Major Major could symbolize outsiders in society or a certain class. He's constantly picked on and harassed by his peers, alienating him from the group. This directly relates to how outsiders in a society are harassed by their peers, which relates to the very old man with enormous wings, a red and lit class. Catch-22 itself is a law enacted by the military to prevent soldiers from leaving the army, as I explained before. It symbolizes the unfair uses of power by the officers and how they believe that their greater goal to have more soldiers for the war is more important than soldiers themselves and their lives. Another symbol would be Milo Minderbender. He completely symbolizes capitalism and his role in the war. He constantly is smuggling goods into the camp and selling them. He also has an international syndicate that he uses to buy and sell goods. However, even though he's a soldier in the United States, he cares more about making money than winning the war and often uses war to make money. He even bombs U.S. military planes at one point to increase his profits. So Heller with Milo really exaggerates capitalism and how it plays a role in the war.
Makes sense. Thanks, Parch. Thanks for taking my call.
No problem. Alright, welcome back to the show, and we have our next caller now.
Hello, Parch. Big fan of the show. What is Heller's overall tone and voice in Catch-22?
So Heller has a very unique tone that takes some time getting accustomed to, and it's very satirical and somewhat depressing. He often relentlessly attacks other characters in the novel from the perspective of a historian, nitpicking every tiny off-putting detail about the character and exaggerating everything to the highest degree. For example, he makes so many unfortunate events happen to Major Major that the reader feels intense sympathy for him. Here's a brief synopsis of Major Major Major's life. Congratulations, Miss Major. It's a boy.
Ah! He's so beautiful! I name him Caleb Major!
We're gonna have to take some vaccines and weight measurements.
Ah, okay.
I'll be back.
Did she say his name was Caleb? I'm gonna name him Major. Perfect. He. In the first grade, Major learned his true name from a roll call his teacher took.
Hello, class. It's the first day of first grade.
Never heard of.
Okay, I'm gonna do a roll call. Giles Corey.
Here.
Samuel Sewell.
Here.
Major. Okay.
Our teacher. I didn't hear my name. My name is Caleb Major. I didn't hear my name.
Is your name Major?
I don't think so. I think it's Caleb Major.
I'll go talk to your parents. I think it's actually Major. I think they tricked you.
A couple of soldiers at the airbase are playing basketball, and Major kind of wants to join just to bond with the soldiers. So here he's enjoying the game.
Do you mind if I join?
Yeah, you're gonna be on his team.
Okay, cool.
Major's all excited because the soldiers are finally talking to him. But then the soldiers, they just kind of let him win. Major is their superior, so they're scared that they're going to upset him. So they just kind of let him win. It's a basket! Feeling even more alienated by his team, Major decides to put on a disguise to look like a new recruit, so in order to get closer to the team.
Hey guys, I'm a new recruit. Can I join?
This guy doesn't look so tough. Yeah, you're on my team.
You pass it back. What are you doing? You know how to play?
You go get it. You go get that ball.
Since Major was in a disguise, the other soldiers thought that they could pick on him as much as they wanted, since he was disguised as a new soldier. They knew he was Major the whole time, but since nobody liked him, they just wanted to pick on him even more.
Thanks, Posh. I was wondering if you could give a quick synopsis to the story.
Sure. So basically, Yasarian is a soldier in the army, and he absolutely hates it. He's constantly tries to avoid service and combat through various ways. Yasarian also has many comrades, and all of them deal with the war in different ways. Some turn insane, some turn to depression, and some become violent, and some turn to romance. It is very interesting to see the reactions of different pilots. Eventually, he completely decides not to fight anymore, and just stays in his tent. The colonels cannot make him change his mind, so they offer him a deal. They let Yasarian leave the army, but he cannot speak about how the officials treated him and the other pilots, or get them in trouble. He has some conflicting thoughts, but he decides to go and travels to Sweden, where he searches for another soldier who they thought had died. This book does not really resolve, but Yasarian definitely has a characterization shift to caring about the other soldiers by the end of the book. Welcome back to the Post Noon Podcast, and our third caller is live now.
Hello, Dorothea Chica. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Look, I was wondering what your overall opinion is on the book.
So, I personally did not entirely enjoy the book, and I cannot really recommend it to readers. There are 42 chapters in the book, and each chapter takes place in a different time period with a different point of view. And it's not in order at all. Also, many of the characters, especially the military officers, use many paradoxical and confusing logic. Also, the way that Heller describes the book, she digresses a lot from the main point. As an overall book, I really like the themes that she's trying to portray, such as the frightening bureaucracy that can control it, the inefficient military bureaucracy and how they operate, and also using Milo and different characters to symbolize capitalism in a really exaggerated way. So I really love the themes she's trying to pull out, but the actual wording and diction of the book is really complicated to understand, and I don't think most readers will understand it. So that was my opinion on the book, but obviously the best way to find out what you think is to read it. So it's not a bad read, it's just quite confusing, but the overall themes underlying it are quite interesting.
Thank you.
Thanks for.
Watching, and I'm your host, Parge.
I'm your co-host Mono.
No,
I
you're
just
not.
got rejected for the
You're-
job.
You're really not.
Thank you.
And see you next time on the Post Noon Podcast.